Reports have come in that so-called Black Lives Matter, the movement, was outside a Harlem hospital celebrating the murder of Officer Randolph Holder, 33 years old. Whole life ahead of him. It's despicable. And there's more evidence that celebrating life is the last thing that this movement is about. Former NYPD officer John Cardillo had eyes on the scene and was tweeting updates before they were officially announced. He joins me now to talk about what he's hearing from this disturbing update. John, good to see you. I find this sickening. I mean, first off, this guy who shot this 33-year-old officer, he was a catch and release, apparently. This guy should not even have been out. It goes to show you that this weak justice system is we need criminal control, not gun control. But the fact that this was a black officer, where were these Black Lives Matter protesters? Where were they for this officer?
Yeah, Dana, thanks for the invite, as always. This was worse than catch and release. The Manhattan DA's office actually recommended this guy get 6 years during his last drug arrest, and two very liberal judges, a Judge Nunez and Edward McLaughlin, just threw that out. They threw out the recommendation of the district attorney and police and put him into rehab and a diversion program. So the system fell down considerably, and Black Lives Matter doesn't seem to care much when black law enforcement officers or even black children are killed. They only really seem to care when criminals with criminal histories are killed by police.
Yeah, because I would think, especially, this isn't the first time a black officer has been either shot at or assaulted in the past several months. And you mentioned, too, I mean, children and like, for instance, the child that was shot in Chicago. I didn't hear really many Black Lives protesters out for that. I mean, they get upset, and for instance, the president was defending the movement, according to ABC earlier today. He was like, look, this is not, they're not just making this up. Well, they actually did. They made up the hands up, don't shoot. That was made up. What is the entire point of this movement if everything that we have seen is them making up and denigrating police? That's all it seems to be about.
Yeah, it is. And let me tell you why I am so frustrated by this. Black Lives Matter is the most disingenuous, dishonest, cowardly movement. I call it a domestic terrorist organization, but let me tell you where they really get me. They claim we're leaderless. We don't have leaders. We're an organic movement until DeRay McKeeson is invited to the White House. Then he's the leader of Black Lives Matter. When DeRay McKeeson is offered a teaching job at Yale, he's the leader of Black Lives Matter. Well, you can't have it both ways. So if he is the leader, we have to go to his Twitter feed and see where he supports Assata Shakur and Mumia Abu-Jamal, two convicted cop killers, one a fugitive from justice. This movement is all about radicalism and hating the police. And now there's this Rise Up October movement that was disgracefully in Times Square today, a couple of days after Officer Holder is killed, the leader of which is a guy named Carl Dixon, a committed member and leader of the Revolutionary Communist Party. This entire movement is subversive.
Completely. And I know that the president had met with a number of law enforcement chiefs, although this was really very criticized by Sheriff David Clark. He said he's just trying to validate this stuff by having law enforcement chiefs who are representing cities themselves that are represented by progressive Democrat criminal sympathizing mayors.
Sheriff Clark, some days I read his tweets and his statements, and it's like I had dinner with him the night before. He takes the thoughts out of my head. He is so right. Look, New York City, the most progressive. I mean, de Blasio is horrible, but the city council president in New York City is even worse. City council speaker. She's even more radical than de Blasio in many respects. So, they get cities like New York, Chicago up there, and Obama parades out these progressive administrations, their chiefs. Now, this is really important. These are appointed police chiefs beholden to the mayors. When you speak to elected sheriffs like Sheriff Clark, Sheriff Rogers in Indiana, Sheriff Grady Judd down here, they sing a different song. They're calling the Black Lives Matter movement and the crimes what they are, and Sheriff Clark's exactly right. This was a dog and pony show by the Obama administration to double down on progressives, what I call criminal enabling policies.
And this, we've seen the effects of this nationwide. St. Louis is unable to fill a number of vacancies in their police force. Crime is up by, I think it's like something like 60% in St. Louis. Baltimore, it's even higher. Baltimore police officers have gone on record, although anonymously, saying, look, we're terrified to do our jobs because even if we know we're in the right and we're stopping a crime, who knows? We could be attacked and called racist or bigots just because we're wearing the badge and the uniform. This has had such an effect, and people in these cities are like, we just don't know, John. We don't know why our crime is so high. I can't imagine why the cops aren't enforcing the law.
Yeah, Dana, I want to read you a tweet on my phone from one of my old partners who tweeted me today and said, "This is disgraceful. They're actually making gun symbols with their fingers, pointing them at us as we drive by and mark cars laughing at us. And they're not allowed to stop and frisk. They're not even allowed to approach these known gang members. 2 days after a New York City police officer is killed, known gang members are going like this to New York City police officers, laughing because they know the police are not even allowed to approach them under the de Blasio rules of policing."
And this was sanctioned by this administration. We saw it happen, particularly like, again, Ferguson, where you had Eric Holder, Department of Justice. They tried everything that they could to throw the book at the police, and Darren Wilson there. They came up empty, so they just said, "Oh, you're a bunch of racists." And then they left, and they left it at that.
Oh, terrible. And that DOJ report was moronic. Well, of course, 65% of the people there stopped are black, because the population is 67% black. I mean, it was so stupid. And if you had a calculator and you sat down for a rudimentary analysis of that DOJ report, you would see that there wasn't systemic and institutional racism in the police. It was very representative of the community demographics.
Yeah, and it's just like if you were to go from Ferguson, if you were to go maybe 10 miles southwest to the Hill area, most of the people stopped there would be Italian, John. And if you would go even further out, if you would go out to West County, most of the people that would have been stopped would have been white. You go further out to Franklin County and you arrest a bunch of people for meth, guess what? They're all going to be white. Because it's insane. That happens to be because of the demo, as you were saying.
Yeah, Dana, I've always said this. Thank you for saying that. I've always said, I'm Italian-American. I was a police officer. When we went after La Cosa Nostra, we profiled Italian-Americans because it was good, sound policing. I mean, you have to go where the criminals are, whatever race, ethnicity, denomination they may be. This moronic, politically correct mindset of we have to have equal numbers of people policed.
Right.
It's so mind-blowingly stupid. I don't even know where to go with it at this point.
No, I agree with you. Oh my gosh, frustrating. John Cardillo, Blaze contributor, former NYPD officer. John, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Great to see you, Dana. Thank you.
And he's right too. I mean, just look for a minute. Franklin County, Missouri. Missouri's my home state. Highest arrest rate for meth, right? That's like the meth capital of the world. There was a documentary done there about 3 years ago. Guess who actually 100% of those incarcerated when they're arrested for meth? They're white. It's a predominantly white area, predominantly methed out area as well. It's demographics. You go to the Hill, which wasn't far from my house when I lived in St. Louis, Italian area. Yeah, more people who are arrested or who get traffic offenses, who get citations, they're Italian Americans. I mean, this is just sort of, you would think that this is common sense thinking, but apparently it's not. And shame on the administration for encouraging otherwise as well. Sickening.